Hi all, and welcome to Data Lens, the short series where we talk about market research in the outdoor hospitality industry. Today, I'm here with Scott Barr, the president of Cairn Consulting. With over 35 years of market research experience, Scott has a wealth of knowledge to share, and I'm here to ask him the questions that you want to know. So let's hop in. On today's episode, we'll be talking about how economic uncertainty is shaping guest behavior and what to do about it. All right, so with that, Scott, can I have any initial comments?
Yeah, whenever you're in any industry where your product, service, whatever it is you do, is outside the parameters of a necessity, a daily living necessity, as in, whether it's leisure, entertainment, whatever, there's risk. There's risk involved during economic uncertainty. And the uncertainty can take two forms. It can either help you or hinder you. And so, I think that's what we're going to try to dig into a little bit today.
Definitely. And we're looking for that great insight because, this is very timely right now.
It is very timely.
So, Scott, how is economic uncertainty impacting outdoor travel decisions right now?
Right now, what we're seeing is, people tend to make adjustments. And to kind of go back to what I said initially, and that is some industries in travel do better when there's economic uncertainty and the economy might be lagging a bit, and others don't. So in many cases, and what we've seen historically is that camping itself increases when there's like increased inflation, increased gas prices. Again, in economic uncertainty, people don't really know, or their confidence in the economy is lacking. And so what you have then is some parts of outdoor hospitality will see an increase in business during these times, because again, camping can be a very affordable way to travel, especially for families. And people look to that because they still want to travel. They still want to get out and have a vacation. So camping offers that. It offers that opportunity to travel when things are maybe not looking so great economically. Additionally, what happens is people will make adjustments. And in many cases, what they'll do is they'll just spend less on their trips. And again, let's assume now that they've chosen to go camping, they may choose to stay at a campground that has fewer services and amenities because the nightly rate is less. And so they can stay for a weekend, a long weekend. They can extend their stay a little bit by saving a few bucks on the cost to stay there. So that's one thing that they'll do. That's one adjustment. The other is they'll spend less on food and entertainment. So in many cases, about 2/3 of people leave the campground to eat at some point during their trip. Not for all their meals, but at least once they do. So there's a lot of people who will dine out. They'll go to a restaurant or get pizza or something during their camping trips. They're much less likely to do that. So instead of doing that, they'll grab a package of hot dogs and hamburgers and cook them over the fire, and focus on that experience and save themselves a lot of money on food. So that's another thing that they'll do. Another thing adjustment that people will make is they will stay closer to home. Again, staying closer to home is easier. You spend less, your travel costs are less. And especially if people are feeling there's a difference. There can be a difference between what people view as uncertainty and what actually is taking place. Uncertainty implies that there's not sure where this economy is going, versus inflation is increased and prices have increased. So the two, sometimes when prices increase, the people are like, okay, we know what we got. We know what we're up against here. Uncertainty is we're not sure where it's going. We're not sure what's going to happen. And that's one of the reasons I will advise people in the industry, if you're looking at any kind of economic measure, look at consumer confidence. That's the one, and you'll notice that a lot of industries, the stock market and so on, move based on consumer confidence. Because if people feel good about where things are at, even it could be fly in the face of other factors, and again, inflation and increased prices. So, but if they feel good about it, they will go out and they will spend some money and they will travel. So, again, keeping that in mind, they feel better staying closer to home. They're not as far away. They can be stressed in their everyday life, so they're going to want to stay closer to home. And the other thing that they'll do is they'll wait to book their trips. They're going to look for deals. They're going to look for bargains. They're going to see what kind of changes are occurring that might impact their plans. Prices go up, prices go down, or prices stay the same. If they feel a little bit better about it, then they'll book. And we've seen this play out in the industry right now. We see that people are staying closer to home. We see that people are looking for campgrounds with fewer amenities and staying at more rustic locations. State parks are doing very well right now in many locations, and that's if it's for that reason. And the other measure that we don't know about yet, but we'll find out later on at some point, is how much they're spending. Are they spending less? I'm going to say that probably is the case. And finally, the booking window has shortened, and we've seen that very consistently throughout the industry. Many of the organizations that actually do the bookings are reporting that this has happened this year. And I think and this has happened in leisure travel overall, where I think in the month of June or July, one of the summer months, that across all short-term rentals, across all leisure travel, so even outside of camping, 40% of all reservations were made within 7 days of the trip. So that's a lot. That's a huge figure, and that's much beyond what we've seen in the past. So if you in camping, just a couple of years ago, people were making their reservations 6 months, a year in advance. And to see this many people making their reservations this quick, this close to their actual trip, it tells you something about what's going on out there. So these are some of the things that we see in the economic uncertainty and where people's heads are at.
Awesome. I mean, that's a ton of information to dive into and kind of digest. So I guess this next question is kind of more focused on, helping people identify where those key factors are. So with guests being more budget sensitive, how can people track or find reports that directly impact, say, them, and or kind of dive into this subject a little more?
There's some good information out there. People go to our website and go to the resource library. There's a lot of reports in there that talk about this. And most of the research we've done through our association with KOA that's been done in the last probably 2 years has something on the economy in there. The overall report we did on the outdoor hospitality report has an entire section on the economy, and also external factors. For example, we did a lot of research last year in the run-up to the election and how that was impacting people's travel behavior. And it did impact people's behavior and attitudes toward travel. I call it national stress. Under times of national stress, what do people do? Again, they stay close to home. And we saw a bump in staycations as well. And so a lot of people are doing that. We've seen an increase in day trips. And again, you'll see that in many of these reports. KOA has been releasing some information from the latest fall travel poll that, they've released some of the information already, but I just keep an eye on the KOA website, KOApressroom.com, and as well as our resource library, as we'll post information there as soon as it becomes available.
Awesome. So, kind of switching gears here a little. So, what messaging works best in, say, like a value focused economy?
That, yeah, is really the question of the day. Is like, what do you say? What do you say to people? But if you consider the backdrop of what we just discussed, what you want to do is make sure that people understand the value of staying with you. Like, what is it? What are they going to get out of it? Because the bottom line is they want to save a few bucks, but they also want to have a good vacation. They don't want it to be terrible. I was going to use a different word, but I decided not to. They want to have the best experience they can possibly get for the money spent. And if you offer a real high quality experience, they're actually willing, they'll pay a little bit more to stay with you, even in economic uncertainty, because, again, the value proposition has to come into play. And in your communications, that has to be very clear. And this is something we've talked about in the past. We'll talk about it. We'll continue to talk about it. It's that your brand, as someone in the outdoor hospitality industry, what is your brand? Your brand should be communicating value across the board. However, if you communicate that everything is premium, people are probably going to stay away. They're going to be a little shy about booking with you if they feel like everything is going to be super high end. So, because there's a difference between high end and that quality, that value that they get. Again, I'll bring up state parks. State parks generally do a very good job of this. The parks are generally clean. They have good facilities. They have good programs. They don't typically have a lot of high-end amenities. Most of them that I know of don't have things like swimming pools and clubhouses. But what they do have is they have really good campsites. They have great, again, access. They're usually near really good recreation, whether it's lakes, rivers, hiking, anything, whatever you do, ATVing, all of that. So their value proposition is our nightly rate is much lower than most other types of campgrounds, and the quality of experience you're going to get here is exceptional. Now, what you're not going to get is probably a food truck, or again, a clubhouse with a game room and a nightly dance or DJ, and you're probably not going to have a swimming pool. So those things associated with a premium are not going to be there, and they're not going to communicate that. But what they tell people is, here's what you get when you stay with us. Again, I'll say it again, it's a high quality outdoor recreation experience, and that's what people seek, and that's what you as a campground, if you're doing, if you're looking at how you communicate your brand proposition, that's what you need to tell people. And again, if you're positioning yourself against a state park, which I really don't advise doing, because people go for very different reasons, but you can do that. And I'll use it in the example, is essentially your value proposition is, yes, we're a few dollars more per night, but we also offer some amenities that are going to enhance your experience, whether it's hanging out in our swimming pool, or having food on site that you don't have to prepare yourself. We're going to offer you some convenience amenities here, and it's going to cost you a few bucks more. So I think in general, that's kind of where you want to be, again, when the economy isn't doing so hot and people are feeling a little bit stressed out about it. That is kind of the sweet spot for you.
No, that's great insight and super helpful. And I think that brings us to our last question here, which is, how can research reveal growth opportunities even in economic downturn?
Everything that I've talked about here so far has been researched. Everything I've said is not my opinion. It's based on results from our research. So that's one. It's that the research tells you what direction things are going. I'll just give one quick example. Last year, when a lot of people were asking what the impact of the election would be, the first thing I did is I went out, because I knew that historically one of the best sources of information on visitor behavior is through the National Park Service. And so what I did is I looked at park visitation every year since 1960, and then I did an overlay of the election years, and the year in the run up to the election in each election year. And in every case, national park visitation went up about 2 million additional guests each year than what you would expect in a typical year. And they had these little spikes before each election year. And again, that tells you that, as I mentioned before, the national stress. So again, looking at, the first step of the research is kind of looking, is this happening? What happens out there in these cases? And that's real information. That's head counts. So that's one way that research can help you. It's just by looking at stuff like that. The other is do your own, talk to people. I know I mentioned this a lot, but just keep talking to people, keep asking questions, ask your guests about, if when they arrive, talk to them about it. It's like, and you can do it in a casual way, but talk to them about their experiences, how they choose, why did they choose to stay at your campground? Why, what brought them there? How are they going to do things? Observe what people are doing. Are they making their own food? Are they leaving more often? And keep track of all this stuff. Those are things that you can do. There's a lot of secondary research out there. Again, our website, I know I keep saying it, but we have a lot of information in our resource library. Go to koapressroom.com as well and look at some of those national reports. You can go to Modern Campground, has a lot of research reports. We've worked with them as well. So there's good stuff there. And, do your searches, whether you're using Google or AI, go out and look some of the stuff up. Make sure you ask the AI for their sources, so you know that they aren't lying to you. So, and you can check those resources too. But do it, and you'll see what happens. You'll see what happens in these years, and you can ask the AI to do that, some of this analysis for you, based on historical information, and make adjustments from there. Also, figure out if you've been in business for a while, look at how your campground changes based on economic conditions. And again, I would say look at consumer confidence. That information is out there on a monthly basis for a long time. It's been measured. So do that. Look at how it affects your campground. Gas prices, they don't necessarily predict anything. Everybody thinks they do, but they really don't. Again, it's that more of the confidence. There's the travel price index too. You can look at that a little bit. That might be of some benefit, but overall, in the analysis I've done, it's all about consumer confidence and their attitudes toward the economy.
That was fantastic insight, and thank you so much as always. So thanks everyone for joining us today for another episode of Data Lens from Cairn Consulting Group. Today we covered how economic uncertainty is shaping guest behavior and what to do about it. Don't forget to leave a comment or question for next week's episode. Hit that like button if you like what you see, and as always, subscribe so you never miss out. Have a great day.
Bye.